Hello guys, welcome to NFI online video tutorials. My name is Rajveer, and in this lesson we are going to learn about HMI. We are using Siemens KTP-400 model, which is a very standardized model in Siemens. And in this lesson we'll see the HMI hardware, and we'll see how to link HMI with PC and PLC, how to configure it, and how to transfer the program. Alright, you might know HMI is widely used in the industry to monitor the PLC parameters. So we are going to understand how we can read-write the parameters of PLC, which could be of very meaningful information. Alright, so starting with the hardware. So in the HMI hardware, we have the main touchscreen interface. Now, the screen interface is a touchscreen with 4 buttons here. All right, you can also see these buttons in this camera. You can see here that's the camera, and you can see here we have 4 buttons. If you're unable to see that, these are the 4 buttons. All right, and this is the main screen. This is the main HMI screen. All right, and now these 4 buttons are basically the function keys. All right, now you can assign some function to these buttons, which could be global or which could be local. Okay, now in global function, these buttons will perform the same action throughout the process. It doesn't matter which screen is open, this button is going to perform the same function if this is assigned as a global function. Or you can have a local function. Local function means if you have a screen A in this case, let's say, this button could be used to start a process. And if you have a screen B, this button can be used to stop the process. So this button can have many different functions based on which screen is open. So these are the function keys here. And you have in the bottom some important connections. This is the power supply. We are providing 24 VDC to this HMI. All right. Then you have a USB port. In USB port, you can either connect an external mouse or a keyboard or a USB memory stick. Then you have a Profinet interface. In Profinet interface, this is the key terminal here. You can link this HMI with PLCs, with other devices, and also we are going to use this Profinet interface to download the logic in the HMI. All right, so we're going to use Ethernet interface to download the programs in the HMI. So we'll learn more about this interface, how to set the IP addresses, how to link the PLC and HMI later in this section. So next is how to link HMI with PC and PLC. Suppose if you have an HMI in your house, first thing is you have to provide 24 VDC. Now the second thing is we have to understand that we have to assign some IP addresses. So this IP address you can set either in the software TIA. We are using Siemens TIA to download the logic. So there is an option there to set the IP address. Or you can put the IP address within the HMI, within the interface. So we will see these steps when we are going to configure the HMI. All right. So you need to have the IP address in the HMI, and then you have to have an IP address in your PC. Suppose you want to download the screen from PC to HMI, we have to check which IP address is in the PC and which one is in the HMI. So for example, in this case, if your HMI is having 192.168.0.3, in the PC it should be 192.168.0.2. So the last digit should be either 1 greater or lesser than the HMI address. That's the easy way to remember how to link it. All right, so make sure if your HMI is having this address in your PC, you have to put this address. Or if you have 192.168.0.5, so put here 4, or you can put 6. All right, so that's how you have to link it. This is the first step. Second step is how to link it with PLC. This we will discuss later in the course, because right now we are going to understand how to configure the HMI and link it with PC. So later when we are going to program the HMI and we're going to link PLC and HMI, we will understand how to link it with PLC as well. Alright, so this is our startup screen. This screen shows up when you start the HMI. So you can see here, this is the same startup screen we have here. Alright, we have transfer, we have start, and we have settings. So the function of this transfer is to configure how you want to transfer your HMI screen into the HMI device. All right, so we'll see that in details later on. Then you have a start button. The start button will start your project, which you will load in the HMI. So first you transfer the logic in the HMI, and then you can start that logic. By logic I mean the screens. All right, then in the settings screen you will have some different calibration option for the HMI to define the IP addresses and to change the brightness or the sound. That comes in the settings screen. All right, so these 3 are the screen navigation buttons. So let's start with how to configure the HMI. So the first step is we have to click on settings. So if you see here this window we have in the HMI, when I click on settings, I have this window. So in this window you have setting for operations, you have communication settings, you have password protection, transfer settings, screensaver, and acoustic signals. All right. So this is the navigation area over here, and the other side is the work area. So here we have this as a navigation area, and that's our work area. So you can see similarly in the HMI as well. So now you can also flip the HMI by 90 degree, and you can also, if your device is in a portrait mode, the navigation area is generally on the top and the work area is in the bottom. So you can also change that if you're viewing this device as a portrait. All right, so the first step is date and time. So to go for the date and time, you can see here we have a date and time button here. So if I click on that, you will find some options. So first is a network time protocol. So if your HMI is connected to some networks, it can take this time automatically from the network. Otherwise, if you scroll up and if you go here date and time, you can manually enter here. So here right now the date is 26th March, which is entered here, and the time is here. Oops, yeah, this is the scroll how you can change the time. So the current time is this one. So this is how you can set up the date and time in the HMI, because that you can later on display on the main screen. All right, and maybe if you scroll up, you can also mention the time shift. So right now in Germany it's +1, and that will define your local time. So that's the local time which you will get when you set up your time. All right, so to go back to the screen, you can click on this button here. So this was the setting and date and time. All right, so I hope this is the first very basic step. You enter the date and time in your HMI. Then you have acoustic signal. Sometimes you will find when you press the button, the HMI makes a sound. All right, so that you can turn on and off by this settings here. So this acoustic settings come here. When you scroll down, there's a sound button. All right, so right now this is off. This was on, and you can also turn it on. So this is the HMI sound. So when you press the button on the HMI in your screens, it will also create some sound. If you don't want it, you can turn it off. All right, so this was the acoustic setting. Then you have configure auto start or wait time. Now what happens sometimes when you restart your HMI, it takes some time. If you want to minimize that time, you can put back it to 0 seconds. So let's see what is the default settings. So I will go back to my settings, and here I might have, this is auto start. This is right now auto start runtime. This is off, and I can put some time. If I want to define some time, I can turn it on and I can put some time. I turn it on here and then I can give some time. All right, so by default I do not want to change the setting because this is irrelevant in my project. So this, but you can change it of course in your HMI settings. All right, so the next is activating password protection. You can also put a password, and that settings comes here, access protection. So when you click on that, you can put your password here, and once you click on that, you will see these keyboard settings here, and you can put your password, and again you have to put password again in the next window. Let me turn it off. Then you have to put the password again in the confirm password, so that if these two matches, then you can put a password, so that if somebody tries to download the logic in your HMI or try to take out the logic, it will ask you for the password. Otherwise you cannot change the program inside the HMI. This was the password protection. The main setting of this HMI comes when you're trying to communicate with each other is the network interface. So let's see where we have that. I'll go back to my settings, and the network interface comes here under transfer, network, and interconnections. I'll go to network interface. Now in network interface, you will find I have an IP address which is 192.168.0.3, and this is my subnet mask. So as I have discussed in my previous slides, we have an HMI IP address settings. You can change the IP address here if you want to, so that it does not conflict with any other IP address in your network. Suppose your HMI is connected to a network of various PLCs and other HMI devices, you have to make sure that your HMI should have a unique IP address. This is the main criteria when you are defining the networks. Every device should have a unique IP address. So this, you have to make sure this IP address is unique. All right, then you have to just put the subnet mask, which is 255.255.255.0. Okay, so this is a small setting. You have to make sure your IP address, you know that, and you should know that this is the unique one. Okay, because later on when we're going to link this HMI with PC and PLC, we have to go back to check the IP address as well. All right, now comes the transfer settings. So if I go back to my settings, I may find this transfer settings. In transfer settings, it says enable transfer. You have to click it on, or you can turn it off. Suppose you have already programmed your HMI and you don't want anybody else to put the program in your HMI or take out the program, you can disable the transfer to prevent any unauthorized access. If you enable the transfer, you would be able to download the logic, download the screens in the HMI. Okay, so this is very simple as it sounds. Second is automatic, whether it is on or off. So generally we keep it on, because when we are going to download the logic from the software, it will automatically be downloaded in the HMI. So it will be gluing in a very smooth flow. It will be downloaded very easily. So make sure this is on when we're going to download the logic. All right, so this was the transfer settings. Then comes the touch calibration. Sometime if you find that your touch is not working perfectly, you can recalibrate your HMI. So let's see how we can do that. I will go back to my settings, and maybe at the bottom you will find this is a touch. So click on the touch, and you can see that to start, tap recalibrate. So I click on recalibrate. Now it says tap the screen anywhere to start calibration. And now it says tap here, then tap here again, here again. So this is calibrated now. Now it will take some time and it will go back to the main screen. So this is how you can recalibrate it. Sometime if you find your HMI is not working as per your touch, so you can recalibrate it very easily. Okay, then comes the display settings. So once I go back to my settings, I will scroll up. I have a display settings. Now in display setting, this is the landscape, as I discussed before about the work orientation of your navigation. This is a 90-degree portrait. If you want, you can do that as well. Then you have the brightness settings. You can increase or you can decrease the brightness. So this is more bright, this is almost dull. So I will keep it maybe here to make it clearly visible in the camera, or maybe I can make it to 100%, or maybe a little bit less. All right, so this is the display, and you can change the brightness as well. Now you have a screensaver. So screensaver, again, I will go down here, the last option, enable screensaver. So I have enabled my screensaver. You can also disable it if you want. So let's keep it disabled because we are going to make some lessons. And this is the brightness of the screensaver. Just in case if you want to have a screensaver, you can enable it, but I generally prefer to disable it to avoid any confusions. So this was how you can configure the HMI. In the next video, we'll see how to transfer the logic from the Siemens TIA to the HMI. Thank you.